Hello and welcome back to episode 51 of Mathghamhain Morsels. This is again going to be in the Merry Meals series. There we go, I can talk. And today we're going to be doing a chicken porridge. So parts of this are already running. I have my broth that I made in episode 50. I scooped out a fair bit of that, put it in a pot. I'm letting it reduce by half on the burner, nice and slow. I also have the rice, which I've already cooked, which I did in 1 cup of rice to 1 cup of broth and a half cup of water. And now I'm just going to start doing the rest of the work. I've already prepped the leeks and the mushrooms that I'm going to be using, but I'm also going to be doing chicken, hence chicken porridge. So, I just have a mix of a couple different seasonings. In this case, it's a black garlic, a smoked garlic, and a roasted garlic, with some salt and some potato starch in this plastic container. So I'm just going to toss the chicken around in it, and then set it off to rest for a few moments. Anytime that you flour or starch chicken, you want to give it a few moments to just relax with the starch or flour on it so that it doesn't all immediately fall off. You can kind of pat it off a little bit as you pull it out, but you just don't want to have all that starch fall off when it's cooking, else it will burn, and if you add seasonings, those seasonings will then burn in your pan. So, always give it that little bit of time, less will fall off in your pan, and it'll come out a lot better. So I just have a plate set up next to me that once the chicken comes out of my little dredge, it goes straight into that. And I have about 1 pound of chicken breast that has been cut into tenderloins that I've just patted dry in some paper towels to make sure that they aren't too wet. Sometimes I do a rinse and then pat dry. Other times I just pat dry. In this case, I just patted dry. With whole chickens, I tend to rinse more often than I do with chicken parts. So, you want to get a good coverage on each piece of chicken, because this is going to help get some color on the chicken when it is thrown into a pan. And in today's case, it's going to be thrown into a pan with some duck fat, just to add a little bit more flavor. There we go. That tenderloin's good to go. Just have 2 more tenderloins left. And it's the same thing every time. Toss the chicken in, wiggle it around a bit, make sure that it gets a good coat of starch and seasoning on it. And I'm using a glove, that way I don't have to rinse my hands right away. You can still rinse them. You can do it without a glove, in which case, once you handle the meat, you absolutely need to go rinse your hands. But there we go. There's all my chicken tenderloins trimmed up, looking beautiful. Dredged and seasoned. They will taste amazing. So now I'm just going to let my skillet come up to temperature, add in a little bit of duck fat, and I'll be frying off some of these ingredients so that I can get some beautiful golden brown pieces of chicken, get some color on the mushrooms and on the leeks, and my broth will probably be reduced by that point. My rice is just finished, so I'll be able to start incorporating these ingredients together along with just one egg. It's a very simple recipe. You can add additional things like cream and additional seasonings, but I'm just sticking with something simple today. So as I said, this chicken just gets lightly fried up in a bit of that duck fat. I've already sliced up some of it, and some of it's still going in my pan. I'm doing it in batches because it was a bit too much chicken for one pan without overcrowding. So you just want to go through it and cut it into nice bite-sized pieces. Of course, just like everything, give it a taste. It's good. It needs a bit more salt, and I did add some salt to the broth, but the final seasoning will be when all of this gets into the broth, including the rice and everything like that. Then I'll balance out the salt, but you want to get all your chicken cut up into bite-sized pieces. And I'll be back once the next portion of this is ready to show. So, as the last bit of chicken is just finishing up in this pan, I threw in the mushroom and leek that I had. And these bits of chicken are just about done, so I'll be pulling these out. But you want to saute the mushroom and leek, get a little bit of caramelization on them. If you need to adjust the heat in your pan, adjust the heat in your pan. I think mine should be good. You might need to add a little bit more duck fat, or you might not, depending on how much you add it. But you want to get this going. And just like with pan sauces and the velouté that I showed you guys how to make, and the espanola, and all those other sauces, you do want to try to get some of this up off the bottom, some of that fond off the bottom, so that you get that nice stuck-on flavor. So I reduced my broth down a fair bit. This won't thicken up like the gravies or the fond or sauces or anything like that, but it'll still thicken to a point where it kind of sticks to the spoon a little bit. And I added some salt because, again, the broth didn't have any salt to begin with. So you want to get it a little bit of salt in there just to amp up the flavor. But that is tasting fantastic. I am going to add a little bit more duck fat to this. You don't have to use duck fat. It's just like any other cooking fat. It just has a bit more flavor to it. It's why I selected it. But any of your preferred cooking fats will work wonderfully in this. So give everything a toss and mix. And in a moment here, this will be good enough to start mixing in the other ingredients again. So I will join you guys back up once it reaches that point. Okay, so here we are. The leeks and mushrooms look absolutely beautiful in this pan. So it's time to start adding things back in. So in goes the chicken. And now in goes that reduced, thick broth that I made. Scrape the entirety of that out into this. Give it a mix. And then you're going to want to add in your rice. This rice is a bit brown just because of how dark the broth that I used is. But this is just a standard jasmine rice, white jasmine rice that is. So you want to get that in. And once that's all in, you really want to get in there and mix everything up. Make sure that rice starts getting into the liquid. I might need to add a bit more broth just because of how much I reduced this down. And it looks like I will, so let me get my broth back out. With how concentrated I made the broth, this won't lessen the flavor all that much. And since I'm adding in more of the broth, it will still be absolutely amazing. Let's add another 2 ladles of that. Because you want it to be rather liquidy. It shouldn't be thickening up yet because the thickening agent that we're going to use is just 1 whole egg. So mix this in. And let's turn up my burner temp a little bit again. And we'll add a bit more of the broth. Let's do 2 more ladles of it. And that should be plenty of broth in there. So again, mix this all around. Yeah, that's going to be enough broth. This is the point where you start tasting it to figure out if you need to add more salt. And this will need a bit more salt. Again, this is a point where it's entirely up to you what type of salt you use. I'm going to grind in some pink Himalayan. Again, mix it around. And give it another taste. That is perfect. It's just before adding any more salt would cause it to go salty. It's still just a beautiful flavor to it. So I turned up the heat a little bit more, because what I want to do is I want to get this bubbling again. You want to get it bubbling before you add the egg, and you want it a fairly consistent bubble. So I'm getting a little bit here, but I'm going to give it a little bit more time for a more consistent bubble. And then once you add the egg, you need to mix the ever-living hell out of this. Because you don't want the egg to just sit and end up pooching effectively. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a small plastic container, and I'm going to crack my egg into that, so that once this is ready, I can toss the egg in immediately. And just start mixing without having to deal with the eggshell that's now in my hand. But that's all good. This is bubbling. Once it gets back up to a bubble, reduce the heat and be ready to stir. Just going to chop the yolk a little bit. And in the egg goes, mix it around. You want it to get mixed in entirely before it ends up cooking, because you want that to be the thickening agent of the porridge. You don't want a scrambled egg or a poached egg in this. You want that egg to just thicken up the porridge, and you can see immediately that it did just that. It got into this porridge, and it's now this thick, unctuous goodness. Okay, so here we are with a steaming bowl of porridge. That's really thick, delicious, unctuous porridge. Ooh. You should probably let it cool down, unlike me, because it is really hot, but oh god, it's amazing. It has all that depth of flavor from the broth that we made. With that addition of those sauteed leeks and mushrooms, and that garlic that we put in the dredge for the chicken. It's absolutely amazing. This is, again, one of those meals that just screams winter to me, because it's hot, it's hearty, it works, it's amazing. You can put all little kinds of twists on this. Add a bit of sriracha to the broth as it reduces. A little bit of soy, a little bit of ponzu, and you'll get a fantastic Asian porridge. You can do it this way entirely. Add a little bit of Parmesan cheese. And it comes out, again, a very different but amazing dish. It can be adapted to whatever the flavor profile that you want is. Add in some spice to this. Some ancho, some chipotle, paprika, add in some cheese. You can get more of a Hispanic porridge. or just do it this way, which I'd just call this a straight good country porridge. But that's how you make a porridge that's actually tasty. This is a rice porridge. You can do it with other grains. I just decided to do it with rice today. And that egg thickening is what makes this porridge, in my opinion. Because it just gives that unctuous fattiness to it that makes it amazing, just steps it up a little bit. So with that, I have a good amount of porridge to eat here. So I'll say goodbye to all of you. But I can't leave off without saying, try something new. Get into the kitchen, enjoy cooking. Enjoy what you make, enjoy what you eat. Enjoy your food, enjoy your life. And with that, have a good one all.